Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. I got pregnant in November. Previous to this, I had a very difficult miscarriage. So this time me around, I decided not to tell anyone of the pregnancy until I was 12 weeks along. A couple of times during those initial 12 weeks, Syl would ask point blank if I was pregnant. I always tried to politely brush it off and just hold my belly and say I love food, implying I'm just fat. Once 12 weeks rolled around, my husband and I told my parents and his parents. I guess his parents told his sister, but that didn't bother me too much. I figure it's past 12 weeks, so it's not a secret, and Syl had been pregnant before, so she knows how private these things can be. Well, apparently I was wrong. My in-laws had a gathering at my husband's grandmother's house, and several times Syl brings up how I'm pregnant and she called it. At one point she called me a liar because I didn't confirm with her when she asked point blank. I just kept looking away and people were giving her weird looks but not confronting her. Nobody was really even speaking to her. She was just talking loudly to herself. She just didn't drop the subject, so I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Why are you so obsessed with my uterus?" Seems a bit weird. And she got offended and called me a liar again for not confirming with her when she asked point blank. I looked at her again and said asking if someone is pregnant is a really rude question. I don't know why you think it's appropriate. But of course, if you always want to be first to know, I can text you postcoitally every time I have sex with your brother. That way, you can even have the astrology sign of the future baby figured out. She looked at me disgusted and just kept saying it's wrong to lie, and my husband and I and my toddler left. I burst into tears as soon as we left, but my husband was completely on my side about it. His mom even called me the next day to say that she spoke to Syl to say she was inappropriate. Syl now refuses to look at me for any family functions. Easier for me. Let's start by saying that I have ADHD, both diagnosed by professionals, and the ADHD part was reevaluated 3 times, and the autism was confirmed after I demanded a second opinion. I have no contact with my dad. He is a diagnosed narcissist. However, I had regular contact with my mom before I got pregnant in fall of 2021. Since my partner and I have gone low contact, my mom loves talking about how she raised us since I got pregnant. Like how I, at 3.5 while she was resting from surgery, aesthetic. She had my grandmother take us to daycare for 4 weeks, and how, in week 2, I gave my grandmother the tricks of how my mom wrangled my brothers who would take off their snow gears while the other was getting dressed, 2-year-old twin. The trick was dressing me first and putting me on the balcony in a high crime area of town, closing the door behind me to not let the cold air in. Dressing one of the boys, putting him on the balcony for me to watch and taking care of the other before putting him on the balcony too, dressing herself, and taking them down the 3 flights of stairs which didn't have child safety gates, to the car with me following. She reminds me every few months to this day how her and my grandmother were disappointed in me and resentful for not telling my grandmother sooner. Or when she took us to get our pictures taken at Sears and we were being toddlers. I think I was 5, touching everything and me randomly screaming, a stim I used to have when overwhelmed. She kept telling us to sit and be quiet, but we wouldn't. So after 15 minutes, she said she lost patience, left the photographer's waiting area, took us to the parking where she proceeded to hit us bare bottom, one after the other, until she was certain we would remember the punishment for days to come. She confirmed it was about us feeling the pain for days. She laughs about how painful her hands were and how she had feared at the time that someone would call my country's equivalent of CPS on her. She laughs even harder remembering that when my dad asked how our day went, I allegedly said we got a lot of slaps and no pictures. She's proud to say that when we went back the next day, we were the picture-perfect kids and how many compliments she got on our good behavior. Or how often she beat my brother's butt until it bruised for climbing furniture. Or how I would make myself severely sick to not eat the food she cooked. I have sensory issues. So many more stories of me either being parentified, including leaving me alone for 4 months with my brothers when I was 15. I had to pay for groceries for all 3 of us with my own money, or me and my siblings being abused. It terrifies me that she could sow something similar to my son because she is not all regretting her actions, but she thinks they are funny stories from our childhood, including denying us food for days on end. In the last few years, my mental health has been very poor. Medication is difficult due to allergies and side effects, and therapy takes the time it needs. But I am better. So in the last few weeks, my art therapist has put a plan in place to help me regain more independence, energy, and physical wellness. It's hard. It takes 4 to 8 hours a day, and I am exhausted by the end of it. My psychologist is all for it. My partner is 100 behind me, encouraging me, helping where he can. It's going well. But because of it, I haven't been very social. I don't reach out to anyone. I'm in bed by 9 every night at the latest. My mom never reaches out first, but apparently she didn't like that I didn't answer her text at 11:40, one last night. So she called today at noon. At first it was just small talk. How am I? Blah, blah, blah. I remind her that I'm doing the ergo plan to get me back on track. She brushed it off. No surprise. She doesn't believe my mental health is poor. Hers is worse, and she doesn't get me that much help. Good for her, but she hasn't worked a day in over 20 years, lives on disability, and I have done all the hard things for her until I gave birth, and even a few after, including playing armchair psychologist. Well, I want to get back in the workforce and get better where I will need minimal help in my day-to-day life. So she tells me about how she had to cook that ham she got for Easter that I didn't come and eat with her. My son had a respiratory infection severe enough that we could barely keep his asthma in check. We had packed a go bag just in case we needed to take him to the hospital again. She lives an hour away by car, or an hour and 20 minutes away from the children's hospital. Why she didn't keep the ham in her freezer a bit longer, I don't know, but it apparently needed to be cooked today. She proceeded to ask me to come get what she wouldn't eat. I reminded her that my husband has the car at work and that I'm doing my plan. Plus, using transits, she's at least 2 hours away, and that's if all the bus transfers are perfect and I don't need to wait more than 10 minutes between them. I don't have the time or energy to do this. So I tell her, sorry, it's not possible. She then said that it's okay, she would just bin all the food. At this point, I am drained and say that I do not know what she wants me to say. She says, wow, call me when you want to see me, and hanged up. 3 minutes later, I get a text from her that I'll translate for you guys. You know I have little things for my son. You could just have told me I could come for a little while. Bye. She never comes to my house. She never offers to make my life easier by doing anything for me. She never hinted at the fact she would be willing to come. She knows I don't get social clues or nice action. She knows I don't read minds, and that I'm very bad at guessing what people want from me. She is so passive, aggressive, always has been if I'm honest. But it's getting worse. She's pissed when I don't make her a priority. She's pissed I don't let her babysit my son. Well, she says her son, like I'm just the incubator who keeps the toddler until she wants him. She's not allowed unsupervised near my child. She's pissed when I let other people babysit him. She's pissed when I don't call her every day. She's pissed when I don't take care of things for her. Despite knowing that to prioritize her, I was living a very unhealthy life. My needs are always last. She started doing the same to my husband, and it bothered me when I realized it. But it still didn't really click. It really started to click how entitled she was with my time and resources when I was pregnant. I had a very high-risk pregnancy due to a lot of complications, and the whole time she kept saying she didn't understand why I had so little energy or why I was so sick, because when she was pregnant with me, insert whatever she did, felt, or how she acted. It clicked when a week after I gave birth, despite her having been there for the birth after she insisted she wanted me to visit her, and that she was disappointed that I said no to go back to the hospital to treat my son's severe jaundice instead. You could have come just for an hour or so, and delay by 4 hours my son's treatment. It clicked when she wanted me bring my son to her so she could cuddle my child, but be of no other help. It clicked when she kept telling me to stop pumping milk and just buy formula for him. It would be easier when my son needed a very specific, very expensive formula. Formula we couldn't really afford. Well, I didn't breastfeed any of you, and you turned out fine. But today, it's so evident how entitled she is. How without asking she expected me to drop everything and go to her for food, and how I should have just guessed that I should tell her to visit when she never does. Even when offered, she never comes. But today, I should have guessed that she would. My partner reminds me that no, I can't read minds. And no, I couldn't have guessed. But he's at work and I'm overwhelmed, tired, and defeated. I feel like I'm asking too much to want just one parent in my corner. I think it's why I still have any contact with her. I feel sad. I needed to vent. This happened several years ago, and it still made me angry whenever I think about it. My dog was not feeling well, and we were sitting in the waiting room of the vet's office. A family sat down across from me, and the father saw my dog and told his daughter, who looked like she was about 2 or 3 years old, to go meet Lassie. Everything was fine until she decided to start climbing onto his back. I said, no, he has arthritis and doesn't feel well. Please don't do that. The girl's father jumped up and ran over and started screaming so close to my face that I could feel his spit. He said I had no business bringing a dog like that in here if it wasn't good with kids, and there was something wrong with me if I wouldn't let a Lassie dog play with kids. I told him that he has arthritis and is not feeling well, and I did not want her trying to ride him. He verbally abused me, female baby boomer, some more, and told me to take the dog out of there, the vet's office, if it wasn't okay for his daughter to play with him. My dog was perfectly well behaved. He always is. I was trying to protect him. I looked over at the vet techs hoping they would step in, but they were on the phone. He said, "Here, Lassie, here, girl," then picked up his daughter and held her over my dog to try to place her on my dog's back. I grabbed my dog's leash and pulled him out from under her just in time, and the kid started to whine. I said, "He's a boy, and he's here to see the vet. He is not a horse, and he's not here for your kid to ride." This resulted in a lot more verbal abuse from him, and I kept wishing the vet techs would get off the phone and do something. He was still berating me when a vet tech called my name and led me and my dog into an exam room. My dog was treated for gastroenteritis and recovered just fine. A little update. My dog is doing fine. His arthritis bothers him sometimes, but he is enjoying life. Fortunately, I never saw that entitled father again. I still get steamed whenever I remember him. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. I did not know they made those in Canada, too. For context, I'm a young university student. I have 2 phones, one which is an old Huawei model that I use for school and work. It's quite slow, but has all my authenticator apps for school, years of notes, the email I use for work, and my work number on it. It runs okay-ish well, but is horrible in terms of processing speed and storage. Yet I'm a lazy shit and keep putting off transferring all the data to make my future self's life easier. My second phone, on the other hand, is a newer iPhone 14 Pro Max model, and it has all my games, friend contacts, social media, etc. on them. This occurred back when classes were still in session, but reading all these stories jotted my memory, and now I finally have time to share it too. Everything is still so vividly detailed in my head that I basically can't get it out, since everything was so absurd. Anyways, on to story. Onto the bus I go, a normal ride for me, which I take every day. I take 2 connections, one which is an express bus from the university to a SkyTrain station, and the second from the SkyTrain station to home. The second bus is where I encounter this entitled parent. I sit down at the back of the bus where I always sit. And a woman who's on her phone and talking very loudly gets on the bus with a noisy kid who's screaming and crying and throwing a hissy fit for God knows why. I sigh, realize it's going to be one of those rides, and try to ignore the commotion. Little did I know, the little one has climbed up next to my seat and staring at my screen, while her mother is nearly 5 seats away, still in heated conversation about God knows what. Out of nowhere, I hear a, "Do you have games on your phone?" I spin around, and there he is. This little kid, perhaps 7 or 8, is gazing deep into my soul, on his knees on the seat and inches from my face. I lean back because, well, I don't function well with people up in my face, and this kid leans closer. Foolishly, I reply. Yeah. Can I play on it? No, go away. But I'm bored. I don't care. Go away. The kid pouts and runs off. I thought that was the end of it. Then a shadow looms over me. I hear an ahem. Then again. I try to ignore it, but it was like an unskippable boss fight cutscene. Then, out of corner of my ear, Young man, Mian. I look up. Great. It's the crazy lady? Yeah? Yeah? Why did you tell my son he couldn't use your phone? Because it's my phone? You kids are always glued to the screen these days. You can do without it for a single bus ride. At this point, I am stunned. So I don't respond for a few seconds, then slowly reply, what I do with my phone is none of your business. This lady recoils in shock and anger as if I had just buried a puppy alive. How dare you talk to me like that? Show some respect. She then sees my second phone, my work phone, and says, you have 2 phones. Just give him one. You can use the other one. No, lady. I'm not giving some stranger kid my phone. But you don't need 2 phones. Lady, I was annoyed at this point and my tone was starting to get aggressive. It doesn't matter that I have 2 phones. They're my phones. I won't be giving them to your son. No means no. She rolls her eyes and walks away, her son screaming and clutching the legs of her pants. I tune out the commotion once more, stricken with disbelief and still wondering what in the world just happened, open up some offline games to decompress. I thought that was the end of everything. How foolish I was. I feel a tug on my backpack as I zone out. I instinctively look for my screen, and this little piece of shit is under the seat, reaching into my bag, trying to pull out my second phone. I panic, smack away his hand, and shout, what the F are you doing? Now I'm normally a very calm, reserved person. However, having served 6 full years in the Royal Canadian Army Cadets and currently being a drill instructor, my voice was loud when I wanted it to be. The kid winces and cowers, freezing for a solid moment before crawling out from under the seat and runs to his mother crying. I sigh to myself. Yep, she's back. Before the kid even reaches her, she's up and storming over. How dare you speak to my son like that? Your son tried to steal my phone. Let him have it. Stop being a brat. You can stay off your phone for a moment. It's not that big of a deal. I was seething with rage, boiling with anger. Without skipping a beat, I spat back, well, if it's not such a big deal, how about you let him have yours? That way you can keep an eye on your little precious angel and start being a responsible parent for once. Your kid being bored is not my responsibility. She turned red and demanded, are you calling me a bad parent? And I responded with, if you were such a good parent, your kid wouldn't be off trying to steal other people's stuff. Now our shouting match had drawn quite a commotion. I heard a few oohs and dams from the back of the bus. She grew visibly red and snatched my phone from my hand. Not my work phone, the one in my hand. Give me that. You brats don't deserve these. I was stunned for a second that she actually did something so incomprehensibly stupid. Looking back, I knew I should have done something better. But I sprang up, wrestled my phone from her grasp, and knocked her down in the process. Shit hits the fan. She starts wailing like a banshee, screaming that I assaulted her. Her son is crying and he's punching me in the legs. The bus screeches to a halt and the driver comes running up. Now, seeing the situation, me towering over the screeching mother and holding a phone, he assumes that I was the perpetrator. This is quite a long bus, joined together with 2 sections, so I assumed that he hadn't heard or saw exactly what was happening, only noticing the commotion in his rear mirror and seeing me knock Karen down after snatching the phone from her grasp. So he says, Sir, return that device at once and leave the premises, or I will be forced to call the pole. Before he can even finish the sentence, the entire bus explodes with several other passengers speaking up at once, defending my case and telling the driver what had actually happened. The driver held up his hand, backed up, and tried to get everyone to calm down, which took quite a while. Especially because the Karen kept screaming that she was going to have me arrested, that she was going to sue me, that she was going to press charges, etc. Once everything finally calms down, I begin to speak. However, the Karen interjects with, Sir, he stole my phone from me. I demand to have this insert racial slurish arrested. Ma'am, please don't use that language here. He looks like he's about to say something else, but I sigh and hold up my hand, and in the most calm voice I can muster in the moment, reply, Sir, this phone is mine. If you will allow me, I will unlock it. I hold up the phone. It's got an anime wallpaper on it. Certainly not something middle-aged women with children would have. I type in the password and the screen is unlocked. The Korean starts screeching again. He saw me type in my password. That's how he knows. Lady, a clearly annoyed man in the back, speaks up in a booming voice. There are cameras on the bus. Everything is recorded. At the mention of cameras, she turns white as a sheet. Then, without skipping a beat, she drags her crying son to the back door and begins pounding on it, demanding that she be let out, all while screaming obscenities and threatening that she's going to sue, that she's going to file a complaint with transit, blah, blah. That wasn't even it. In the commotion, despite threatening to, by the Karen, someone had actually called the cops. Right on cue. So 2 officers roll up to the bus with flashing lights. The Karen throws herself at the officers as they are let in and starts spinning some sob story when she's cut off at once by a very annoyed police officer. This was something like 8 at night and was probably nearing the end of his shift or something because he had an expression like he was absolutely done. Long story short, the bus was halted for something like an hour and 45 minutes. A second one pulled up, which all the other passengers filed off into, not before giving a witness's statement. The camera feed was pulled. And Karen was placed into the back of a cruiser after she slapped a police officer. One says that they arrived because there was a report of someone being assaulted on public transport. The police get my contact information, my ID, etc., and tells me that they'll contact me if anything else needs to be done. I have no idea what happened to the kid because I didn't stick around for the aftermath and just wanted to get the hell out of there. The worst part? My parents, who was always displeased with me coming at home late, unfortunately, did not believe my story. They thought it was an excuse. This is a bit of a long story, so I apologize in advance. There's a bit of backstory that is relevant. This story happened several years ago, around 2015. When I married my first husband, we bought a house built in 1960 with its original aluminum shingled roof. This is somewhat relevant later. The roof looked bad but was in good shape as long as you kept the leaves off it. After we got divorced, I kept the house and lived there until I moved in with my now husband. I kept the house empty for a couple years, checking on it regularly just in case things didn't work out. During that time, I didn't clean the roof off and the leaf buildup caused a leak. This was immediately repaired and convinced me it was time to sell the house. I listed the house for just what I needed to pay off the mortgage and waited. In 3 months' time, I didn't get any serious offers, just investors that lowballed me. My realtor was getting really restless when finally I got an offer that wasn't terrible. We started negotiations. She immediately made it known that she was in the Air Force Reserves and retired from the Army or Marines. I forget which. My parents were in the Air Force, so that isn't something that I care about, and she wasn't getting special treatment from me for it. I'm used to people that use their military experience to get stuff. She was getting a VA loan, and at the time that meant stricter requirements for inspections. She kept trying to get me to lower the price and finally used the roof leak against me. She claimed the roof needed to be replaced and found a roofer willing to back her up on it. It kind of forced my hand, so I agreed to pay half the expected replacement cost, but she didn't want that paid to the roofer. She wanted it paid directly to her. It was clearly an excuse to get the price lowered. It pissed me off, but there wasn't much I could do since I needed to sell this house. We finally agreed, and the house was put under contract, closing date set for a month away. The inspections started. After the first one, she asked for a few minor things to be fixed, which I did. Then we had the second inspection for the VA loan. This was about 3 weeks away from closing. I went by the house the day after, and as I pulled into the driveway, I found a package addressed to her in the mailbox, a metal shelf and outdoor swing sitting in the driveway. I'm not happy, but more confused than anything. I then went into the house. The house is a tri-level, with the basement being just 5 steps down from the kitchen. The basement had been redone to be a primary bedroom prior to me buying it, but I only used it as a family media room. The first thing I noticed was the basement. She had completely rearranged it. There were IKEA wardrobe closet, things she had pulled from the wall and ripped apart. They were screwed together, flipping them around. She had moved a mattress from the upstairs into the basement. The floor was damaged while they moved things around. Furniture was completely rearranged. Then I went upstairs to the bedrooms. I found cans of paint and packages of curtains in all the upstairs rooms. These are not my things, and I'm angry. The house isn't hers yet. She shouldn't be leaving things there or rearranging. I called my realtor, who called her realtor, who called her. It was relayed to me that she had dropped some things off outside. There were also bunk beds on the back deck that I hadn't seen yet, but she insisted she was never in the house. It's an obvious lie to cover the trespassing. I then went outside and found a circular burn in the grass, after which I found a burned paint stick inside the house. Now, there's vandalism. In an effort to appease me, the buyer agreed to move up the closing date. It was supposed to be within a week. That ended up not happening, and we only closed 3 days early on Monday instead of Wednesday. Other than the delays, nothing else happens until just before the closing date. On the Friday, before my realtor called me and said the buyer wanted to move in over that weekend instead of waiting for closing because she's military and doesn't get many days off and wouldn't be able to move until that next weekend. Not my problem. I immediately say no, not happening. The realtor called again later saying she's really pushing the military thing. She really wants to move in early. Would I be willing to do a lease agreement? I again say absolutely not. I get another call saying that the buyer has now called anyone and everyone involved with the sale. The loan officers, insurance company, realtor broker, commanding officers, to try to find anyone that can force me to let her move in early. She was now threatening to not show up to closing if I didn't let her move in. I asked what would happen if she didn't show and was told that she would still have to pay the commissions for both realtors and that since there was a contract I could take her to court and force her to complete the sale. I again said she was not moving in early and told my realtor that she could convey anything of what I was about to say to the buyer. I told her that I didn't press charges for the trespassing and vandalism because of the contract. If she failed to show up to closing, I would not only pursue all my legal rights regarding the contract, but I would also be contacting police about pressing criminal charges. I don't know how much of that was relayed, but I got a call a few minutes later that she would be showing up to the closing, but she wanted to sign her papers in a separate room. The closing went off without a hitch, and I'm glad to be rid of that house. I don't think she ever replaced the roof. I'm 19 female, and I just moved back in with my mom after being at my grandma's for a year. My mom kicked me out because she didn't want me to order DoorDash without feeding everyone in the house. I was 18 and was sharing the food with her kids, but that one time I ordered myself a milkshake. She told me not to eat the food in the house anymore, but a couple days later asked me to wash the dishes I hadn't ate from. All I did was ask her calmly, if I can't eat your food, what makes you think it's fair to make me wash your dishes? She lost her shit and asked my grandma to take me in, or I was gonna be on the streets, and she didn't give a fuck. My grandma kicked me out because when I first moved in with her, her bedroom I was meant to sleep in was absolutely covered in trash and broken garbage bags full of dirty clothes. She slept on a couch. I cleaned it up to make it livable for me, as I'm not a dirty person. After she knew I cleaned it up, she had been threatening to take her room back and I'd have to leave. She finally ordered her some new curtains, bedroom decor, and got rid of me so she can have her dream room. Now my mother, who offered for me to live here, is causing me trouble again. Before I left, it was hell for a plethora of petty reasons, and now it's no different even though she said it would be. I've been actively job hunting since my first day here at her place and had no luck. This is her response. My mother has stopped allowing me to eat food in the house. I'm not allowed to consume anything from the kitchen unless it's water. I used to steal food, but she has cameras in her kitchen, living room, backyard, front yard, facing the kids' bedrooms, and bathroom that she watches like it's television, so she caught me. Threatened to take me to a shelter if I touched her food again. I must feed myself, but like I said, I'm jobless, and she knew that when she accepted me back home. My long-distance boyfriend, 19, gets me Dr. Dash every other day when he can. And even then, I'm not allowed to eat in the house. I have to eat it outside at the neighborhood park, no matter the weather or how early it is. Or even if it's dark, there's no lights at the park, so it's pitch black out there. My boyfriend works long hours, so sometimes he works till on a mail. If he offers me something after he gets off work, I have to decline it because I'm not allowed to order anything or leave her house after 10 p.m. Sometimes he can't afford to for days at a time and I'm left hungry. I'm not angry at him at all for that. I'm more than thankful for the financial help and emotional support he provides. I do hate having to depend on him to eat, but I'm trying for jobs, and he's all I got. I never asked him to, he just offers, and at first I would tell him now, but I got so hungry I couldn't say no. I'm expected to clean my mother and 2 younger sisters, 13's 11, dishes and even help prepare the food, but not allowed to eat. Rarely she'll order takeout, and then when everyone's finished eating, I'm allowed a tiny portion of food, the smallest drumstick out of the KFC bucket, and 4 French fries. I don't know if I'm just being greedy or an asshole, but it feels like I'm being fed scraps like a dog. After her doing that twice, I asked her why I wasn't allowed to eat. She said, because you don't eat unless you work. I'm starving you into getting a job. She knows I've been job hunting since I got here. I keep her updated on the places, interviews, the follow-up emails, and all the rejections. As unfortunate as it is for me to go hungry, I understand her thought process. 2 weeks ago, she started a new rule. I'm not allowed to stay in the house or around the premises of the house if no one's home. I'm not allowed a set of keys or the code to the house security system. I have to wake up with her when she gets up from work and then leave out of the house when she leaves for work. I'm not allowed back in until my sister walks home from school and opens the door with her house keys. I don't have a car to sit in case of the weather, so when it rains or it's cold, I'm just fucked. Soaking wet and shivering. If I need to use the bathroom, I have to walk to the nearest gas station and use the bathroom. Luckily, it's open to the public. Today I almost bled myself, had to walk to my sister's school and get the keys to unlock the door, clean myself up, and then give them back to her. My mom has a Ring doorbell and a million fucking cameras all over the house pointed to the kids' bedrooms and bathroom to watch everything. She has had it that way since I was still in school, had my own room. I'm also not allowed to talk or text anyone, including my boyfriend she knows helps me eat because otherwise I'd actually starve, on the phone I bought and pay the bill on. Anytime she catches me on the phone, she threatens to pack my bags up and drop me off at a homeless shelter and leave me there. Which she can do. I'm a legal adult and she doesn't have to let me stay in her house. But how crazy is that? Not being allowed to stay in the home you were allowed to live in again, not being able to stay dry and warm from the weather, not being able to eat. Not being able to shower and change my pad when I've had an accident, not being able to talk on my phone, not being allowed to have a comfortable place to sit or charge my phone. Before she started to kick me out, I'd get up and go job hunting and only come back until I had to pee or needed water food. Job hunting is a full-time job, and I've always treated it like such. She doesn't care, though. Right now I'm sitting on her porch. She's already complained that I need to get off her tiny. It's the size of a porta potty, literally. Porch. I told her that it's starting to rain. She said she doesn't care. So even though I'm still going to be wet on this porch, at least it's close to the house. I also use this porch to charge my phone and plug in my heating pad when it's cold out, but she still doesn't care. I apply for jobs online, which doesn't require for me to be outside, but she says I'm not allowed to sit in her house. We live in the digital age and paper applications are extremely rare to be an option. I've walked to every single business and shop within a 20-mile radius of the house, whilst her and my sisters sat in the car and followed behind me while talking shit about me being a lazy failure in life. I'd go in and ask if they were hiring and they'd laugh at me and tell me to apply online on their website in this dude tone. That's what I had been doing, but my mom thinks it's 1992 and that places have paper applications. I tried to explain that to her, but she didn't want to hear it and still doesn't. I've been applying every day on my phone for hours while I'm stuck out here. I've applied to everything from janitor, fast food, to flight attendant, warehouses, and cabin agent for airlines at the local airport. I've done interviews she offers to drive me to and tell her about it afterward. I keep her updated on everything. I need to know I'm not crazy and feeling frustrated here. I'm aware I'm a legal adult and she's not required to help me at all, but this is starting to feel unjust to me. This is bad treatment, right? Or am I just spoiled and don't know it? This is normal. What do I do to make this better? How can I fix this? Edit. I literally just got off the phone with a Sam's Club recruiter, and he told me he's going through with my application process and welcome to the team. Does that mean I got it, or that I'm just being accepted to physically interview? I work at a large storage facility. We provide carts for customers to move their goods as a courtesy and keep them evenly distributed between the two entrances to the building. They're available on a first-come, first-served basis. As I was doing my daily facility inspection, I got a call from my coworker in the office asking me to come speak to a customer because they had an angry confrontation with another customer. My immediate reaction was, so what? Mediating disputes between customers is not in my job description. Regardless, I took the elevator down to the back entrance where the argument occurred and talked to the customer back there. She explained they were using all of the carts to transfer goods between their new unit and their old unit, and when another customer had asked for one they currently had goods on, She had let them know that more carts were in the front of the facility. This triggered the person asking to start screaming the phrase, "Why should I have to?" featuring prominently in the story. Screaming Lady's husband got aggressive, so the cart using customer's husband asserted himself without violence, and the other guy decided to go to the office and make it our problem. I get to the office and ask the Karens what happened and immediately recognize the husband as someone that is throwing a tantrum over there not being a cart available for him immediately, when he arrived a few months ago. They share their side of the story, which also features the words, "Why should I have to?" in the same events, but casting my other customer and her husband as dangerous and psychotic potential murderers. Male Karen repeatedly states he will do whatever he has to do to protect his wife. I let him know if anyone does violence on the property, they will be evicted and reported to the police. He keeps saying that it's my responsibility as the facility manager to control my customers, and that if something happened to them, I would be the one at fault. I disagreed with him strenuously, stating that I can't control anyone and am not responsible for the behavior of my customers. They left in a huff, saying, "I'm not even a real manager. I let them know there are more carts in the front if they still need one." Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.